don't have to be.
Right.
For most of us, like devil. I call it a little bit of devil.
I don't think it hurts to mention a little bit of what people were into before they started debating young. Just let them know what they had to deal with, and forcing that vehicle to
Could have been a bright-haired teenager, you know, drove the parents crazy.
Or a parent that drove the kids crazy.
If we explain what makes the world, and law enforcement come along and say, well, we might do this, and to me, what do you have to be sure that they won't be led astray? And I'm not sure if the question's there, but we can make sure that the only thing they're going to lead to is the astral.
Anything that gets them away from this direct information could be nothing else but forces in opposition to it. It's just like as we were using Still Lodi and others as a guinea pig to explain the type of booger they might have to deal with. Anything that would have you find fault with or have any negative response to, or like in search of excuses to rule this out and do something else, even though the booger might say for better, would automatically be recognized as an opposing force or a booger or an adversary. There's something else that happens when you really touch the real truth and stop me if I'm wrong, but and like the little mind way down there, after having touched the real truth, seems to know, even though it can be overshadowed by the lower forces, seems to have known what it touched. It's like a spark off the big flame that it has touched, but it doesn't know it enough to stay in control of it. But there's no surefire way that we can keep humans from listening to things that would turn their ears. What they should do is have the capacity to go back and re-examine. Look, this information was shown to me. I know for a fact it is true. These laughed. And therefore I've got to stick to it to the letter. And anything that would take me a letter away would start me in another direction.
Oh, can you stop me? If the pattern is like it has been in the past, the ones who sincerely are seeking, there will be, I feel like, help for them to begin. But they still have to know what is right and what is wrong. In other words, they've got to develop a feeling, just like you all have to develop a feeling. In other words, you can even say that in your little book, that you have to develop a feeling
To recognize
what's right and what's wrong. And the only way you will know what's right is by studying every one of these books. It's just like the Bible.
and seeing the similarity.
Right. A lot of people have felt like, well, as long as I follow what's in this Bible, I'm okay. However, they felt like it was the Word of God, which it wasn't. It was experiences that individuals had with God. But it wasn't always true like what Paul wrote to his way. But if you read the Bible now, which we don't want you to, but I mean, if you read it now, knowing what you know, you could probably tell what was next level stuff.
Right, and where the forces came in to have them try to put other stuff in to start watering it down.
So what they have to do is sort of develop their feeling for what is exactly right, because if you write your little book right, you will say in there what we talked about today about what the law forces will do and what they want you to do. If they want you to sit and practice techniques and say, this will take you where you want to go, then that's not right. Because one thing we overlooked saying earlier, and I meant to say it and I let it slip me by, and that is that what Lucifer has developed as far as techniques go, the next level does it at will. They don't have to.
In what is considered their natural way.
In other words, it's not just like if a need arose for them to travel mentally someplace, they could do it. But they wouldn't have to sit in a yoga position and go into a trance or in a meditative state and do it. If the need was there, they would be able to do it. And everything that Lucifer has developed as far as what these Mahatmas and all can do, members of the next level can do it just like that. As you get older and you are faced with different circumstances, you learn all of these things happen to your being. And you may not even be aware that you're doing it. Or that don't everyone do what it doesn't everyone do this? Aren't all of you capable of doing it? You see what I'm saying? That's how natural it will develop. You don't have to sit and practice techniques and breathing and yoga positions, get the kundalini up to all of that stuff. And that is the key right there.
That's right. There are
No phenomena.
Disciplines, yes. Disciplines, yes.
The
Discipline is that of overcoming.
There's no astral travel, there's no
No, they would not do it. And they're not trying to do it. And if somebody comes in to them and says, let me tell you, that little boy that the yogas say, listen to?
Listen to the voice within, the Christ within. You know who's talking. Ain't the next level.
That's why we said to you all when you meditate, don't listen to any voice that tells you anything, because it is not. You will not hear anything.
I'm glad this came up, because this is very important. Don't listen to the voice in silence. It will get you off the track.
You can put your voice of silence to work for you by telling it to heal your body and all like that, but don't listen to any advice, because it doesn't know anything more. But all he knows is to get you off the track.
Get you on his track.
Like talking to yourself, like I said here, earlier told me to get the flag.
Sure.
That's the wrong voice.
Yes, well your vehicle is listening to you. You're not listening to another voice. Your vehicle is listening to you. Now, he said a moment ago, and then didn't mention anything further about it, that like when we leave, the ones who are really seeking truth for some time will receive a lot of special attention to stay on the right track until the track gets firmly established. Because this is a task of the next level to get this new age firmly stated, and then it's kind of what they do with it.
In other words, the Lord stayed with the children of Israel for about 40 years. And then he separated them and put them in different cities. And then he said to Moses, before Moses died, he said, they're going to turn against, they're going to break every rule in the book. But he had done all that he was supposed to do. And he knew that they would do it. And then they would be finished, because he would move away from them, they would watch and observe and see how they handled what he had taught them over all those years. And they didn't stay on the track. Some of them did, but had already existed. But then when the Lord came in close again they were put in bondage for several years, and then they pleaded, "Oh, release me," and so he came in, released them, and gave them more instructions, and they did the same thing over. But the point of it is, like Joe said, it was 60 years, I think, after Jesus left, something like that, when those Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and John
Gospel
were
writers.
And so therefore it makes us believe that according to the pattern, then there would be some close help for anyone who is looking like the next 60 years.
Those
said
four, for example, weren't close to each other for many, many, many years, and yet look how close together those accounts are. And you know what's funny? Not one of them says, "Listen to our brother Paul and do what he says." Not one of those accounts has anything to say like that. Do you follow what we're saying?
But there will be an opportunity for everyone to get all the help that they can, and the opportunity to get all this going for whatever length of time it is for the figures. 40 years, first time for the children of Israel, 60, maybe it'll be 80 for this. We don't know. I guess it would mean how many people were interested in it. You know what I'm saying? In other words, if there was no interest in it, then they probably won't waste any time.
But if the people are really trying to pay attention and to get the meat of the lessons and the information, they'll get a lot of help in the early stages to get it firmly established, firmly out. Isn't it strange to me that it's very strange that they write this account, the gospel writers, and it all ends just shortly after his crucifixion, and yet they are writing years and years later. Now, if I had looked at it objectively, I would have wondered why they had nothing to say about this one that they had appointed also to be an apostle, and who was taking such a leadership in the church that he was going all over the place starting churches. It's almost like they didn't want to mention him intentionally.
Hoping that they wouldn't find him.
Do you see what we're saying? And like they left him out intentionally. Like they are sorry that they let him in after they saw what he did. Otherwise, there would have been some mention of him. I think the help they were getting, the gospel writers, kept their pen from writing any of that, kept their pen stuck to the information that they wrote, and made it also so close. They weren't in the same towns. They hadn't seen each other for years and years and years when they wrote this account. And yet they were almost identical. Almost. A lot of little discrepancies, but not much.
It says in there, just before Jesus left, and he told his disciples that they are leaving, something about the Spirit of truth will come to you, and it will help you to know what to do and what to say.
The helper.
Come from him.
Says it translated in today's terms, I've got to go, because when I go, they can send someone who can help you with a lot more clarity than I have been able to, the world. Of course, they say that he said, "I will come again," which he didn't. He meant that the Lord will come again. The kingdom of heaven will come again. It has to come again. And the age will end. He even told them that the age would end in that generation. Right? Did it not? And a new one began. Can you see what we're saying? And the same thing will happen at this transition. Now, that's what we started talking to you earlier about today when we got with you together. And that we think is extremely important for it to sink in your heads and for you to digest it well, so that people could understand what the end of an age and the beginning of an age is. It's when the next level sends someone in and then what comes as a result of their having been there is the New Age. And the time prior to that, prior to their sending, for example, the Old Age to us is that, in our eyes, has not yet quite come to conclusion. The New Age will not begin until a little while after our departure. Maybe even some years, a few years, till the facts all start being assimilated and the information starts coming out. And then it will begin.
Question. You talked earlier about Jesus and having that rise of God and Spirit. That's kind of there's some say that God is.
Well, you could say that he was more accurate when he asked Peter, who do you say I am? I think it was Peter. And he said, you are the Son of the living God. In other words, that a true living individual, which was contrary to what could have been interpreted to mean one of spirit. Can you see what you're saying?
I was thinking maybe that since our emphasis has been so much on developing our minds strength, we are more concerned about the mind in that sense than we are about the physical. We are concerned about, we are concerned about the body having a strong body that produces the mind. The mind ultimately is the more important thing.
Well, mind is the captain of the ship, but you got to have ship. and don't think that the captain is doing any good running, skimming across the water without a ship under him. I mean, you can't accomplish anything. And it's the same thing. Members of the next level have bodies for that purpose. And that's why it's so wrong to get confused. And Jesus was also trying to help them understand that, yes, you were born, or you were baptized of water, which was like you were born in a water-filled womb. That was the beginning of life for you. Now you've also got to be born again, and in the process you'll be born in spirit. It's like they're trying to explain reincarnation to them, because they had to leave that vehicle in order to enter another one. But that had nothing to say that wasn't related with, it meant nothing about the kingdom of God being one made up of bodies without spirit. Now, also when Jesus came to them, and he appeared to them after he had been resurrected, and they said, is this a ghost or is this a spirit? He made it very clear that he wasn't. He said, can you not feel my side, the wound? Am I not sitting eating a fish with you? You don't call me a spirit or a ghost. In other words, now the quality of his vehicle had changed, true, because he had been back to the spacecraft. He had been back with his father before he appeared with them again. And he could do things that he couldn't do before. But he was still in a house, a vehicle. He was not spirit. But humans can't get that clear in their head. They think that there's either this form or there's no form. They can't realize that next level vehicles vibrate at a much higher rate and can do things that human vehicles that have not been changed over cannot do. Well, I think what we just talked about is more important than that. The necessity of a vehicle and the difference between vehicles of the kingdom of heaven and human vehicles.
If we put it on tape about, or is it on your notes where we want you to make sure that you put in your book the purpose of you all being here? If we put it on tape, huh?
Well,
In other words,
for several purposes.
The purpose of you all being here was to uplift people, right? And through your thoughts, and to leave the thoughts for others to draw on if you need to.
In other words, the first thing we gave you, and number 2 was the thoughts that you deposited. Now, you could add to number 2 that in depositing those thoughts, and you're still depositing them on paper, which you're going to leave behind. The purpose of uplifting people will be left in a significant way. Back to what you said a moment ago, mind stuff. I don't know stuff because that sounds like philosophical thoughts, but people should know how to separate the mind from the vehicle. They should, in your book, you should let them know the brain is not the mind. That the mind is the living force. The mind is a mind. The mind and soul are synonymous. You could let them know that soul and mind are synonymous. Mind is not synonymous with brain. Mind occupies the brain. The brain is just an organ of the vehicle, which the mind occupies.
What I was kind of shooting for, in some of the books we had read, they talked about scientists who were trying to, they had termed mind as being a sort of bioplasm, is what they call it. What I was looking for was a way to say what mind is, took it out of the spiritual context and made it more realistic, more physical mind, not physical body.
Okay, then you could say that you could think of it, and correct me if this is wrong, you could think of it as the real you is invisible, which is your mind. That's the living you. The vehicle wouldn't have any life if you didn't step into it, and if you didn't occupy it as mind. It's the life force that operates everything, that permits the motion of thoughts, that gives you experiences, that has remembrances. It's like an invisible computer that, when in a vehicle, makes the vehicle function in all of its ways. It's like you've got 2 bodies. One is invisible, and it's mind. It goes the whole shape of the vehicle, and then when it moves into the body, then the 2 become one, but the mind is still not the brain. But it wouldn't hurt to try to explain it, and if you all try to explain it in your own words, maybe all those different explanations might hit home.
What would be the best way to try to convey to a human the right way to ask the next level, the right way to look to the next level?
Well, the right way to look to the next level would be, number 1, through the information about the next level that's been given. And number 2 is to keep in mind the real in the heavens Father. And that's the reason, like when Jesus was with his disciples, he wanted to be their teacher. But he was about to leave, and they were saying, well, how are we going to pray? Well, you're going to leave. You're going to leave us here. And he says, well, then you start off by saying, our Father, the one who's in the heavens. And that's the key. That's the key. He's in the heavens. The other one might tell you he's in the heavens. Don't believe it. His heaven can never get out of the atmosphere of the earth. Can't get out of the atmosphere of the earth.
And if you think that, you will automatically contact
the real heavens. If you are thinking beyond the atmosphere of this earth, the one who might have the core of his house galaxies away, and you would be reaching toward the real Jesus. Now, the one who is on this planet, who is Lucifer that we've talked about, he will gladly tell you that that's him. And he'll gladly try even that to fill the bill, because he can say, I'm from the heavens. He was
Chances
one.
are you will bypass
He was one.
himself. Chances are you will bypass
Yes, but
if you go directly to the heavens.
they don't forget they monitor. And it's almost like you light up a spark on their monitor. If in sincerity you, like, are you not leaving all this information that clarifies what the God of this planet, what Lucifer and his helpers are like? If you know that information, and you're saying, I want to be in contact with the truth of the real God in the heavens, not in this earth's atmosphere, couldn't help but spark a monitor.
If you want your job.
That's right. You might be the very one. Got a. What is
You
it?
got somebody calling.
Somebody.
Somebody's on the call. On the line. They're on the line. They got a nibble. Got a nibble.
Well, an appropriate question is, but I wanted to know how to address or handle the question that some may have about, well, what happened to the demonstration? Can I just brush that off with saying that information was updated maybe?
Well, in our minds, believe it or not, whether that scripture applied to us or not, the same thing in reality happened to us. In other words, whether or not that 13th chapter in Revelation had any relationship to us or not is irrelevant to us. However, we know that on October the whatever, we were shot down in the streets of the whole globe on network television. And that we picked up our marbles 3 days later and said, we're not going to let this do us in. We're going to keep right on going.
They thought they had squelched it. But of course we went on holding meetings, but
You can read that in different translations as if to say that they were killed, though their bodies were not injured. Do you see what I'm saying? And it was like we were shot down, in quotes, but we weren't physically hurt, and we got right up and went on about our task of the heavens. Now, remember that the writer of that was really trying to almost relate visions and dreams. And the world has made 20,000 times too much importance out of that book, because nobody can make heads nor tails of it. There aren't even heads nor tails to be made of it.
well, the thing of it is, let's say that it was our task to do that. It is not the way at the next level to actually plan something like that to happen. In other words, if somebody came along and shot us down, we would probably have arisen. But nobody came and shot us down. Physically, like it said. You see what I'm saying? And we wouldn't ever set it up. But if we were walking along the street someday, one day, and somebody came and shot us down, we would probably lie down dead if we'd been killed. And chances are we would have awakened in 3.5 days and been taken off up into a spacecraft. But in my mind, it could have happened if there was some individual who had wanted to do that to us. But
then our boogers are all higher helpers of Lucifer, and that's true. And they have all obtained by abstinence, celibacy, renunciation of the world, techniques of posture and exercises, some of them that would be abominable to you, but they believed that they were okay because they were taught that was the proper way to use the force. someplace that they come and go from. But major boogers have all attained to knowing how to leave their vehicle and do their work in the astral. And they are your adversaries. And they are also those who would use major figures in the world as their mouthpieces to keep people at the human vibration.
And you ought to know that the boogers that you have are not mean people.
No, they think...
They think they're off the track.
Yes, this is the point. This is the point that also Jim Odie brought up. They think that you are headed away from the true God. Don't forget, they feel like they know Him because He has taught them the secrets, even of how to control their vehicle, how to enter it, how to leave it, how to travel anywhere they want to travel, how to make this world a better world. Don't forget, they are goodness in their eyes. And you can say, well, if they're goodness, then why can they lead me to such lower thoughts? They feel like they have been given carte blanche on pulling anything necessary to keep you from accomplishing your goal.
They can be as low and as high as they want to be.
Can you see that? They feel justified if they see you have a weakness in sensuality or a weakness in this and to attack your vehicle in that weakness area because they are keeping you from accomplishing your goal. Only Lucifer knows that your goal was good or is good. All his followers are totally convinced at this moment as they hear us speak that you have missed out, that you don't know the real God. And you might as well know what you're up against.
So that's the feeling that you would get sometimes. Maybe it's not verbalized, but a feeling of not liking what I'm hearing, or a feeling of I can't do this, or any of those negative feelings is my booger.
Anything that would be negative to what we have given you would certainly be your booger. Now, and the way he will use a lot of the, like those in your class who dropped away, would say to them, you've got to go do you've got to make a major spiritual contribution to this world. And haven't you finally waked up to the fact that this is off the track? It didn't get you out here when you thought you were supposed to get out of here. Can't you see that it isn't true? I can offer you a contribution, a spiritual contribution to the world.
Is it possible for that booger to use the mouthpieces of other individuals, or to, like, confronting people with this information and then getting some kind of a response of,
that booger can sit right, that booger can come in here, the one who's assigned to you, and if you're talking with 3 people, he can use each one of them just that fast to do what he intends to do with you, if you let him. He can use their mouths even innocently. They won't even know what they are saying. But if it will have an effect on you that will please him, he'll pull it. They're sharp. They're sharp.
Because they feel like it's right.
That's right. They feel justified in it. Absolutely. It's for your good. And they see you as a good prospect, a significant prospect. Look at the devotion. Look at the devotion you have shown this poor misguided cat. And if that devotion could be applied to our real efforts,
You could be a Muhammad.
can you not see it? Huh?
The possibility exists that I could have a different booger tonight. I could be assigned one to do a certain part or number on my head.
The possibility exists, but I wouldn't put it in your book because we feel like, for the most part, that individuals have been assigned individuals, and you don't know. We don't know anything beyond that, so we wouldn't speculate past that.
Now, when Doe was talking to you already about somebody else, that booger of yours could use somebody else mouth. He wasn't talking about your classmates.
Right.
Right.
I knew you were talking about only you.
Right. Weren't you?
Well, except that his booger can also come between them
Oh.
constantly, so that he's not just using your mouth, he is also using their action to justify what he is saying to you.
In other words,
Even your classmates in that
other
way
words, you
can.
might,
Me, though.
right, you might see them as doing something that is really bad, but yet they may not even be doing anything bad, your classmates. You see what I'm saying? But because he's standing there, he's clouding the picture. And in other words, somebody could be scratching their head, and if he's standing right there in front of you, you could see that person is making fun of you or doing whatever he wants you to see, and it would be extremely negative. In other words, this is any time
This
you
is
have,
how I meant that he could actually even use them
Right.
innocently,
right,
have them do something that would successfully put his point across to you.
now any time you do something where you have a feeling, then there's something wrong. In
Yeah.
other words, if Erodi, let's say, would do something that, suppose he reached over and took that pen away from you and said, let me borrow it, and you had to write something, and normally you wouldn't mind his borrowing your pen because you would feel like Erodi wanted to write something real fast and he'd run out of ink.
That he must have had good reason for it.
But suppose you said, give me back my pen,
Or you felt.
just, you had a reaction.
What on earth makes him think that he could take that pen from me? He can clearly see that I'm using it.
That is your booger. Okay? Anytime you have a reaction, anytime you delight in breaking a procedure, meaning, I've just thought of procedures, so I'm going to break one.
Or that you want to hold procedures up to others.
Right.
I want to show you how I'm doing procedures correctly. And I wish you were half as good as I. Now, I'm exaggerating.
Yeah.
But anytime you're holding procedures up to others, it's your booger.
Or you see that somebody don't know procedure, but you do.
In other words,
You see what I'm saying?
let me state that. Let me state that again. I'm holding procedures up to you as an axe to grind. It's my booger. If you have asked for help from procedure, and I'm trying to help you with procedure, it's not my booger. But if I am trying to get a point across to you about procedure, it's my booger. Now, why would your booger use those elements in that way? He'll use anything that will give you an excuse of seeing your classmates in a negative way. He has had some of your classmates leave the class on the basis of their classmates weren't good enough. I was the one always trying to do the right procedure. They were always seeing me in a wrong light. I'm tired of sitting around here and having everybody see me in such a wrong light.
I'm going to be vibrant and alive. Everybody else
He'll use anything
Oh,
that
you
he
know who
can
about
use, including what we teach you, to get you to stop what
Yeah,
you're doing,
that's
to get
bad.
you out the door.
And that's the way you can tell between where's just your vehicle slipping some of the program and doing something, making a mistake. That's your booger, because it's your booger using the vehicle's weakness.
There's a feeling.
When it's just your
Yes.
vehicle, get the groove and fell into
Right.
the hole.
The feeling is always something either of, why can't you listen to me? Or, how could you have hurt me so? It always has something. It either has anger, or hurt, or irritability, or impatience. It always has some feeling to try to drive the point home.
Let's use you're losing weight. You could have accepted it as the new diet that I'm consuming now. It's good because I'm getting balanced because I'm not a normally fat person. And but instead, that booger evidently must have come in every so often to make you worry about it. Now, what is that label? Weakness. Concern for self.
Yeah.
When we have said to you, nothing's going to happen to you. You've come this far. What could happen to you? If you run out in front of a car and got killed, nothing will happen to you. I mean, you would be without a vehicle, but it wouldn't stop you from getting back to the next house.
Well, if you had been perfectly
See what-
loyal to that point, doing the best that you could do, you've lost nothing.
You didn't
just
quit.
wouldn't have a shell to turn in.
You didn't quit.
Just a
You
box.
didn't quit the class. You didn't walk out the door and denounce it. You see what I'm saying? You stayed, but it wasn't your fault that you didn't see that car that came along and killed you. You know. So this is how it works. It's weakness. It's sorry. You know.
And it's
In a
righteousness.
female vehicle of tears. That's a female book. I can't talk to that person because every time I do, she starts crying. You know, every time we try to correct her, she starts crying. That's a female book. That's a characteristic of a
that
female vehicle.
frequently goes with.
In other words, learn all the characteristics of the bookers. Learn them. And they can even make you think you don't even have one.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
I've got
Your booger will
all
maybe say,
everything
you don't have a
together.
booger.
It's everybody else who doesn't
Just,
have
you can see the boogers in all these other folks. But you've got it together.
It's really, they're really cunning. And like Joe said, they do not stop at anything because they have been given the task to get you off of this, to get you back on the track because you could be a very good member of Satan's crowd because you have all the discipline. You're good. You're as good as I am. That's what they say, you know. And you could be even better than I am. So they're going to turn your eyes and everything.
Make a guinea pig of Theolotes' booger. And this isn't a guinea pig of Theolotes. This is Theolotes' booger. All the difference in the world. Theolotes' booger could say to him, look, just because you've rejoined the class at a later time, that's no put down on you. After all, your teachers asked you to leave some time ago. And now that I'm back, what are my classmates doing? They're picking on me. And I am trying to live by procedure. I know what procedure is around here. I'm trying to do my very best. And what do I get in return? They're picking on me. Now, what would be the only reason that thoughts like that would ever enter your head? To try to get you to have an excuse for stopping what you're doing.
Or to cause you to be upset.
Yes, because once you start finding fault in others and feel like they're not fair to you, then it's giving you ammunition to start turning in opposition to them. Have you not had to deal with this book? Do you not recognize his face?
I'm learning to.
Well, welcome to the club.
Yeah, we
Never
can.
known all this before.
It's not too late. Don't even think that. Don't even think.
There isn't a single person
No.
sitting here who hasn't at one time thought they made something.
That's right. And their classmates. And all their classmates.
I bet you. But or had to deal with, you know, the thought coming in and they either fought it off or they gave into it.
Your booger just uses the excuse of that you haven't been with the class long and they're seeing you in that way. Because that's the way it can get your attention. Because it sounds very logical.
The thing of it is, if you all could just realize that you all are stronger than the booger, and you do not have to listen to all that garbage. If you have nothing else to listen to, then spend the time writing on your book so you don't have to listen to it. If that makes sense. Know what I'm saying?
Jim Moody knows that his booger has him worried about his vehicle, concerned about being ill or having things wrong with it, and about thinking that his teachers are seeing him as a nervous wreck or whatever it is. We've even joked with him at times, and he'll take it right, and then go off, and a few days later his booger will have it all blown out of sight, And you'll see that, and you'll say, "Boy, I must be in horrible shape. Even my teachers told me that I was a wreck." And so Jim Moody recognizes that. Now, how does he get away from this book? He stops thinking about Jim. He starts thinking, how can I make Emory's problem less difficult for her? How can I make Erodi? How can I contribute to the class in a way that is positive for them? Why do I have to be so self-centered as to think that I deserve all that worry? Why do I have to think in that way? Why don't I get my eyes off of myself? Stop worrying about myself. Why can't I help these others in their way?
And that bugger will come in and say, but nobody cares about yourself but yourself.
Yeah, who's gonna?
Now, I care about you, so let's worry about it. Because if I don't worry, then it's going to slip up on you, and the next thing you know, you're going to be in really bad shape. But I tell you right now, Jim Moody, and anybody else, that there's nothing that's going to happen to you. Nothing. And you're going to get back to the next level as long as you do not walk out the door. Well, you'll go anyway. Whether you go in honor or,
But your brother can even use that as a contest. He can even say, we'll see. You've told me that to try to get me to stay. You told me that to try to make me worry about it. If I went out, that I would go back to failure. I'll show you. Now, your brother can use anything. Anything. He's Mr. Master Dirty Tricks, but he's only Master Dirty Tricks for good, he thinks.
In other words, he can come in and say, every time you have a little ache, if your big toe, that's not, the vehicles all have this particular disease or this particular problem. And it may be hereditary back in, if you were in the world, maybe you would come down with those particular things because it's implanted into your mind that that's where we're at. But here, in this classroom, knowing who you are right now, and knowing that your booger would use that against you to turn your eyes off of what you're doing,
you don't have to give in to it.
Right.
We've taught you all the ammunition to work against any time capsuled deficiency or weakness. I'm calling what he's talking about, and like an inherited weakness. Like maybe you had a dad who, at 34 years old, acquired a certain skin problem. And his dad did the same thing, and here you're reaching 34, and you've got the same thing. Or whatever it is. But that's no problem. I'm talking about a problem. Then it's true that your vehicle would try to go right, at that time, would try to yield to that weakness. But you have been taught to recognize it and to avoid it and not permit it to happen. You've been taught by the things we've given you in the last couple of months to get in there and reprogram the minds of all the little cells in your body to not accept those weaknesses. So you have no excuse unless you don't do your homework. You better. It's not only right, you should. We want everything to today. The reason we're doing all this is because we want you to have all those updates clear. And we hope that if there are other updates that aren't clear, that they'll be brought to our attention so that they will be clear in your account.
About losing weight, I used to worry about that. Now I thought about it, no, it doesn't matter because I'm not dying. Then this booger, my booger comes in and says, well, the T&O gave instructions, they want to know if anybody does. So I said that was the very trick.
Using it in that way.
Well, see, we're talking about the little skinnies, like Mercodi.
Extremes, and you're not anywhere close to that.
But you had gained an awful lot of weight when you worked at Steak and Ale, and you could stand to lose some weight. And I think, in a sense, they would just kind of help you to go to that instead of those tight things, so you wouldn't have to go through that.
I'm going to close this, okay?
Okay.
Okay, we're stuck.
what we, I'll go over it again. Let's try and complete it by September the 15th if you can. If you can't, then we'll extend the date, but let's shoot for that time.
So that
okay?
you won't take it too slow.
In other words, we don't want you to write the book of the month. In other words, we'd like for you to write it and say, start at the beginning when you, someone is asked whether or not it would be okay to talk about what happened in their lives prior to hearing about it.
If it's done briefly, it'd be
If
okay.
it's done briefly and you want to do it, it's perfectly okay. And you don't want to include what's on these tapes at the very beginning. It would be towards the end. So what you would want to do is write down all your notes while all of this information is fresh in your mind, and then you can transpose it or put it into your book when you get to that part of the book.
What you want to concentrate, though, on is not, we took a trip here, we took a trip there, we took a trip here, we did this, we did that, but you want to concentrate on the lessons and what you learned and what you experienced and how you learned those lessons and the process of overcoming and the lessons as they changed and improved as you changed.
In fact, up until the time we all gathered together in Wyoming, you could make very brief.
That's right.
You know, the meetings that you
Yes.
held and what you wanted to tell everybody. In other words, you were putting out the net trying to pull in everybody who was supposed to come with us. In other words, we were letting everybody know
Just like
about that we were here.
ringing the bell.
Right, blowing the trumpet, or whatever you want to
There you
call
go.
it. And then, when we came in, all gathered together in Wyoming, then briefly tell that, and then we started setting up the class, and lessons started to come in. You all remember that? You may not remember the lessons, but in other words, it's the concentrated effort that you had in overcoming, I guess. In other words, in a sense, people would have to kind of break away from their normal way of life in order to be able to do what you all had to do.
Sure. I think that even Steele-Lodi, Stan-Lodi, and Duer-Lodi ought to include in their account some of the benefits that you got from a period of different experience, but you also ought to include that it took a more difficult effort to catch up in ways that you could not experience without being with your teachers. In other words, I think that point would be very helpful.
Because there were a lot of things you did not learn.
That are necessary and that you're having to do double time in a lot of areas now.
Which is maybe a little bit more difficult.
Which would be important to pass on. Okay.